Good morning, everyone, and welcome into the Spotlight Omaha podcast, where we take you around the city of Omaha, introduce you to local business owners, influential figures, and people who are making impact on our community. We are brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. Pixel Fire Marketing is a locally owned marketing company who specializes in website design, creating social media ads, and engaging your brand online. If your business could benefit from any of that, check out pixelfiremarketing.com today. Joining me inside of the Pyramid Contractor studio today is Andrew Fetter, who is a wealth building coach with Fetter, Unfettered Wealth. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, when we talk about the difference between being a fiduciary and a financial advisor, why is that such a big deal to differentiate the two, and what are the differences?
Yeah, so I really think the reason it's a big deal is more on the marketing side of things. I had a gentleman ask me once, he said, hey, what's a fiduciary? Because it kind of seems to me like it doesn't really mean anything. A fiduciary is somebody who has a legal obligation to do what's in the client's best interest. Now, is it possible that a fiduciary would do what's in their own best interest instead of the client's? Absolutely.
It's always a possibility.
Can somebody without a fiduciary that's not a fiduciary take the client's best interest? Absolutely. So that's the technical term. But for somebody who is a fiduciary, they can hold that medal up high and say, hey,
Sure.
Look at me. This is why you should do business with me. It's more important that you're working with somebody who does have your best interests and who you're a good fit with.
And obviously, after the last couple of weeks, it's really important to work with somebody you do trust. When we see a dip in the market like we did last week and kind of the ramifications after, what kind of advice were you given to the people that you coach about kind of managing the market in the roller coaster it's kind of been on the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, so we really do a good job educating our clients on the upfront. Dollar cost averaging is incredibly important. I use the adage, this too shall pass, right? We've
Sure.
been here before. And so, again, it's important to know where people are in life, where their goals are. Somebody who's 20, and I talked to a 20-year-old, the market dips like that. They got 40 more years to make up their retirement, and it's likely going to come back. It's got a pretty good track record. Yeah. If somebody's closer to retirement, that could impact their retirement a lot. That's why you got to have better strategies to where those market dips don't impact it as much.
How often are you having conversations with people about placing money in different places? And obviously it's different for each person, but we're talking about maybe building wealth through real estate or the market or Roth IRAs. Or how often do you see people attacking one portion of retirement versus maybe flexing out and doing a couple different things to build wealth?
Well, you got to have the means and the assets
Sure.
to really be able to diversify like that. Real estate is very attractive. It's marketed very well. A lot of people want to get into real estate as an investor or an agent or whatever it might be. I like the diversification in the stock market. I like the track record in the stock market, but those conversations happen regularly just because we want people to be educated and make informed decisions. If they decide real estate's the best route for them, by all means, go for it. My job is just to let them know what their options are and what's available, give them some recommendations. If they like those, great. If they don't, great.
You mentioned a minute ago you guys work with people of all ages. What are some similarities between having a conversation about their financial future that is the same with a 20-year-old versus, let's say, a 60-year-old?
Well, I think the education piece is going to be similar. Oftentimes where people know terms, but they don't really know what they mean.
Sure.
So what happens a lot, two terms that are popular out there, maybe like the Roth IRA, like you mentioned, or a mutual fund.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things. Roth IRA is a tax code. A mutual fund is an investment. Mm-hmm. And so it's important that people understand what those terms mean and how they can benefit them.
Do you blame Dave Ramsey for confusing people on what those are?
I don't blame Dave. I used to have a chip on my shoulder for Dave Ramsey because he's on the radio talking about it, and I'm out here doing it.
Sure.
But
that's a good point.
But I realize Dave is right 100% of the time for who he's talking to, and he's not talking to anybody specific.
Yeah.
Right. He's talking to this mass audience, and I think that the information that he has is fantastic. But then people are kind of left on their own to figure out how that applies to their specific situation. Sure. and there's not a lot
Lord
of
knows he'll take your phone call.
there's not a lot of flexibility with what Dave is saying just because of the way he says it. That's why it's important to work with a personal coach. Not just the information's out there, but the power's in the implementation.
Yeah, it's
so that's
specifying it to your story. Sure, absolutely. Do you have a story in which like somebody came to you and it was in shambles? You don't have to obviously mention names, but just a sequence where it was like, hey, you know, we may be retiring sooner than we wanted to, and we don't really know where we're going. How do we get there? Do you have something like that where somebody you've worked with where it was kind of a dumpster fire and you guys were able to kind of put it together?
I don't know that I would say
That's probably a good thing if you don't.
a dumpster fire per se, right? So I would ask, where do you think most people get their financial education?
Economics in 9th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
or their parents or whatever it might be. And the fact is, we don't know what we don't know. We can't teach what we don't know. And so whether it's that 20-year-old kid, somebody who's 40 and kind of in the thick of it, or somebody who's 60 and like getting ready to retire, we almost always start with that education piece and teaching them what's available to them and what their options are, and then try to figure out what the next best step is.
I think every day for my entire life, I've heard that Social Security is eventually going away, and Social Security is eventually going away. And if somebody is trying to navigate those waters of what life would look like without government benefits at the end of their life, what are some of the questions that people have in regards to, hey, Social Security, my pension, like when we're talking about the starting to pay taxes on your pension and things like that, what are some of the questions that people have at the end of working about life after work?
Again, for the most part, people don't know what questions to ask. One of my favorite clients that I worked with as we were in the courtship phase, I guess you could say, he said, hey, when we meet tomorrow, if you were me, what questions would you ask? And I said, hey, that's a really good question. Here's some of the things that you should be concerned with. And so I think that's a great place to start. Again, people don't know what the right questions to ask are. So when it comes to things like Social Security, really it's just important to understand retirement traditionally is a three-legged stool. Social Security, your pension, or 401k is what it's turned into now, and then your personal savings. And the one thing that you can control more than anything is that personal savings. So that's where I would focus most of my efforts, are on the things that I can control. If Social Security is there, great. If my pension doesn't go broke, like some have been known to do, that's gravy. But I can control what I'm doing.
And when we talk about the thing that you guys do the best or the most, if we're putting your fingerprints on it, what do you guys feel like you're doing that's different than anybody out there that may be coaching somebody financially to kind of have your feel to it versus maybe your competitions?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. For me personally, it took me a while to learn this and to figure this out, but I'm very genuine. I am who I am. I'm good at developing that relationship. If we're a good fit, then that's great. We're going to be able to accomplish a lot. If we're not a good fit, we shouldn't work together. And so that's a strength that I have that I think is really helpful, is building that relationship and being that coach for people and being side by side. The education piece, again, is a big part of what we do that people really appreciate. Knowing that I'm on their side and that I'm fighting for them is important. And then as on the maybe products or services side, we work with over 100 different companies. We're independent. And so some of those companies, again, are going to be good for that 20-year-old kid who's maybe got $50. Some are going to be good for that 60-year-old who wants to figure out how he's going to make his $500,000 or $1 million last. And because we have all those options, we can say, hey, you know what? Let's put some money here to accomplish this goal. Let's put some money here to accomplish that goal. Here's the next step or the first step that we need to do. And so we've got a lot of flexibility in that regard.
What benefit is it for you personally if we're talking about working with multiple different companies? Why is that such a benefit? Because obviously we see companies that are championing, hey, we're under this umbrella or we're affiliated with this company. And it feels like this idea of, well, we're talking about insurance or wealth building or whatever. It just feels like there's this branch out period happening in the industry where people, no, we don't want to be affiliated with one company. We want to give our clients the best options. Is that the kind of the reasoning behind doing that?
That really is, again, because there's not one company or one strategy that's going to be right for everybody. I mentioned before that if somebody leads with a product, then that's kind of a red flag for me, right?
And what does a product look like in your industry? Like,
So that would be like, hey, you should really look at this insurance product, or you should really look at this annuity, or you should really look into this investment. This is the best thing ever. This is the hot new thing on the market.
Sure.
Right? That doesn't, I want to know more about you and what your goals are. Maybe it is a good fit, but it's doubtful that it's a good fit for everybody.
sure. And we're catching up with Andrew Fetter here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio. When we talk about coaching, because you mentioned you're a financial coach, you've done some coaching in youth sports and things like that in the past. Why is it such a big deal for you to be a coach?
For me, I think it's more approachable. The image or stereotype of a financial advisor can be intimidating. And for me as a coach, I don't want somebody who says, hey, you know what, you're the expert. Here's my money. Do what you want with it. I want to work hand in hand with them. We'll help call the play, but they got to run the play. It's their money.
Sure.
And if I can't be more committed than they are, right? We'll help give them that guidance, but they got to be the ones to do it.
And a lot of the difference there is being fee-based versus commission-based and what you do on your end. Can you explain kind of the differences in those things?
Yeah. So again, that's a hot topic. And when you talk about like the products and companies and this, that, and the other, fee-based is like an advisory role where they can charge for their advice, they can charge for the plan they put together. They're not getting a commission for selling a specific product, right? So maybe they don't have an incentive, a financial incentive to say, hey, you should buy this, right? And that could be advantageous. You could also end up paying a lot of fees when you're really not getting the service that you deserve. And the gimmick that you hear a lot is when you make money, we make money, right? A commission base, again, they're getting paid more for the product that's being sold, but also it's kind of set and it's standard. This is what it pays.
And nothing influencing.
Right. And so often what I see when we're talking to folks about making a change, getting a second opinion, or whatever it is, the product or strategy that they have is often based more on what the representative wanted to sell and how they like to get paid than it is on what the client actually needs or what's good for them. And so we've got the option to do both. I like getting paid both ways. And so it's really what's in the best interest for the client is what we want to do.
Is that a unique situation to be able to do both, or is that pretty common?
I think it's more unique than common. It's not a challenging thing to have the licensing or to be able to do both. I don't know how many different companies out there have the flexibility to do both. But even if one can do both, a lot of times they're still biased to their own preference, whether it be they like this certain investment or they like the way this one pays them.
Sure, it's just an option to have, whatever fits their needs. I guess that's a great way to look at it. You're from, you're from Council Bluffs. You live in Carter Lake. Why is it a big deal for you to be able to do business where you're from and in the surrounding areas, obviously like Omaha?
I've really enjoyed getting to know the community, being able to give back to the community, helping like-minded people. I didn't grow up wealthy.
Sure.
And
Same.
so being able to work with those people, I know you're from South Omaha, just being able to give them an opportunity that maybe wasn't offered to them before, I think it's really important. Additionally, I'm licensed in, I don't know, one license is a nationwide. I think I'm licensed in half a dozen other states. I've gone out and gotten licensing, and it's kind of a a bear. It's kind of a pain. Sure. And so I just as soon just focus on where I'm at. And I enjoy meeting with people face to face, kneecap to kneecap as well. I think that's important.
Obviously, we're coming out of a time period which was as unique in history in a pandemic. Was there anything about the pandemic that changed the way you guys do business on a day-to-day basis?
So we were actually, before the pandemic hit, our broker-dealer, our firm, was working with Zoom and regulators to be able to do our business virtually. The pandemic hit in 20. I think they were going to announce that in 21. So obviously they moved it up. We were one of the first that were allowed to take our licensing exams remotely. So we were on the pilot for that. And there's a lot of convenience to that. But I think as we're seeing now, companies are wanting people back in the office. People want that human connection. Although Zoom's convenient, they still like to meet in person, whether it be in their home, a coffee shop, or at the office. So it really just gave us more options.
Right.
And then what happened with the economy during the pandemic and after, and right now, it's making people realize, hey, I really should take a closer look at this. I really should get educated. I really should be working with a professional and really figure out what this is.
And is there any part of you, and we talk about being an entrepreneur and running your own business, obviously you have to love what you do. And you just mentioned it, you love kind of having that face-to-face interaction, being able to meet with people, and when you get stuck behind a computer and you're working over Zoom and you're kind of missing out on that human interaction. Any part of you kind of think about maybe pivoting on what you're doing for a living?
No. Somebody asked me once, they said, hey, what part of what you do you dislike? And I'm naturally an introvert, and I don't like the tediousness of being the behind the scenes on the computer stuff, the phone calls and stuff like that. We really feel called to be in this business, to be in this position. When I left youth sports, it was challenging, but it was also easy because we knew that's where God was leading us. And I knew throughout that process, I could feel him working on my heart. And so I've gotten very passionate about what we're doing, about being in the financial industry, about making an impact on families. Both parts are a nice break from the others. So like if I'm getting worn down with people, it's refreshing to be able to go and sit behind the computer and do that part of the business. But it's also good to get up from my desk and get out and go connect with people as well.
If and you've mentioned it a couple times now, your faith is a big deal in why you guys do what you do. What role does God play in your business?
I don't necessarily like market myself or use that, but we're just trying to be faithful, and I think God wants to bless people. He wants to take care of his children. He wants to bless us so that we can bless others. There's a fine line between some of the prosperity gospel and everything else. But I think the role that he plays in our business is just the role that he plays in our everyday life.
And we're catching up with Andrew Fetter here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and apparently some big giant purple thing. And we're inside the Pyramid Contractor studio. I want to ask about you personally. When we talk about being an entrepreneur, being a coach, being a husband, being a father of 5, how do you balance your work-life balance and dedicate your time to the things that need your attention?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's no such work-life balance, I think, is a myth. There's always I
don't know if I disagree with that, actually.
there's always going to be an imbalance, and I've got a mentor that has often talked to us about God wants you to win, God wants you to be successful, and if God's put you here, you're here for a reason, and it will look like from the outside that there's imbalance, right? That your priorities are out of order, that you're worried more about business than family or faith or whatever it is. But really, because we've put God here, as I grow my business and grow our personal wealth, we know that that's his work so that we can bless others. My kids are bought into what we're doing as a mission.
That's gonna be my next question. Yeah. How much do they know about what Dad does?
Well, the older ones that we don't really push it on them per se, and they've seen the challenges of anybody starting a business and building a business. My 9-year-old is all in. He's called dibs on my business. He'll hop on some trainings with me. We'll talk about the stock market and the economy and things like that. So that's a lot of fun. But they know that what we're doing is important. And if I say, hey, do you want me to come to your game on Saturday, or do you want me to go build our business? They'll often say, go build the business. Sure. And so there's got to be a balance, right? Not every game is critical. Sometimes there's a championship game that maybe I would miss for a client, and other times there's clients that I'll miss for my kids.
What role does your wife play in the business?
She's a great motivator to me, as wives can often be to husbands in any area. She helps me with some of the back office stuff, some of the CRM, some of the follow-up stuff. She's really great with our team and helping them out and encouraging them and being a resource for them as well. And then she takes care of the home front.
How often does she yell at you about your social media posts?
Very rarely. We work in conjunction on those.
Sure.
And in fact, this is something that I tell people privately, and now I'm telling everybody. There's times I might hop on social media and I'll see my own post and think it looks really good, and I'll go to like it and then realize it's my post, because she's the one who
actually did it,
who often does that. Yeah.
When you have somebody like that in your corner that you can go to and they can be critical or coach you on things, you, as somebody that is a coach, you have to have an appreciation for that, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Coachability is extremely important, and you got to look at yourself first, and you got to be able to take criticism and figure out what's true of it, what areas you can grow in or improve, and maybe what is just hate, if you will.
Yeah, if we want to talk about growth and talk about where we see, maybe not even just the company, but you yourself in 5 or 10 years, what does that growth look like in being a fiduciary?
So really, where we're looking at in our business is developing other leaders, developing other representatives. There's a huge need for what we do in the market, just where we're at in the economy and in history, and where the baby boomers are at and the next generation, where we're at in the industry. A lot of advisors are nearing retirement. And traditionally, a lot of people don't, again, they don't understand what their options are. They're not taken care of properly. So it's very important to us to continue to grow and develop other people that can help those families.
If somebody is looking to get into entrepreneurship or starting a business for the first time, both as an entrepreneur and somebody that coaches financial advancement, what advice do you give to that person if it's a day one opening the doors?
I'm a big fan of the strategy of ready, fire, aim.
Sure.
And I would say just go. The most important thing is for having a business is having clients. If you don't have clients, you don't have a business. So go get clients. And when you're starting, you're probably going to lose more clients than you get.
Sure.
Because you're figuring it out. But that's how you're going to figure it out, and that's how you're going to get better.
The one thing that kind of commonly comes up on this podcast is people thought they would hate the sales portion of what they do. And obviously, if you own a business of any kind, you're in some form of sales. Is that kind of your thought process when you went into it? And how much do you like that portion of what you do?
When I got introduced to it, I was 20 years young. I was really naive.
Sure.
And very coachable. So I honestly, I didn't have a thought process getting into it. I was just excited. But I was able to learn a lot about sales, the sales process, business in general. And I really did fall in love with that.
What's your favorite thing about what you do?
My favorite thing about what I do, I enjoy the freedom and flexibility of entrepreneurship. I enjoy the grind of it, knowing that we're going somewhere. And I really enjoy just the difference that we make for people financially. When you see, a burden coming off their shoulders, a weight lifted. That's like, okay, now I see that there is hope. I see that there is direction. I know that we can accomplish these financial goals. That's really rewarding.
What's the best part about being a coach, whether it's youth sports or you're walking somebody that's 60 years old through their retirement?
The best part, again, is just seeing seeing it click, seeing them get to that next level, seeing that, oh, I can do this. And then when you get to one mountaintop, it's let's go conquer the next one.
I think this is the question that I think everybody has been waiting for, and people have probably been on pins and needles about. Who is the greatest professional wrestler of all time?
I'm glad you asked that. We were talking Mount Rushmore before, and I'm still tossed on Mount Rushmore. But I can easily say that the greatest professional wrestler of all time is Hulk Hogan.
Okay. We're kind of hitting that part of the show where we kind of shut things down, obviously, with that question. Is there anything about what you do in Unfettered Wealth that people should know about before we kind of close it down for the day?
Again, we're really good at that relationship piece. I don't charge anything for my time, my service. If we decide it makes sense to work together, then I get compensated by those 100 companies that we use. I think it's important to have a conversation, to take that initial first step, even if it's just a cup of coffee, to get to know each other, share some ideas, figure out what that next step would be, whether it's with me, whether it's with somebody else, whether it's on your own, or maybe you don't want to take any steps. At least have the conversation and make an informed decision.
You can get a hold of Andrew and his team at 712-326-5152. Have that conversation and find the coach that can guide you through your financial quest today. Andrew, thank you.
Hey, Jimmy, it's 9557. 5152 is my wife. You can definitely reach me with that number. And I apologize. She pointed out to me that was wrong somewhere. We haven't gotten it fixed yet.
Will you give that number really quickly?
Yeah, it's 712-326-9557.
There you go. Get a hold of Andrew and his team today. Thank you very much for doing this with me today, man. I greatly appreciate it. I know we're meeting next week, and I look forward to that conversation as well. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, taking an interesting look at a company that is giving back to Omaha in a unique way. You'll have to find out who it is at 11 a.m. tomorrow here on the Spotlight Omaha podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing inside the Pyramid Contractor Studio.